Hola, buenos días y buenas tardes.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Those that are present today in Zoom and those that are following over YouTube. I'm Pablo Daniel Bujan Matas. I'm the coordinator of the Service Learning Program in the Arts for CLAYSS, that is the Latin American Center on Service Learning. It's an organization that for almost 25 years now has been training and disseminating the pedagogy of service learning from Latin America to the whole world. We are broadcasting for the first time since we started with this kind of meetings. We are transmitting live over our YouTube channels in Spanish, in Portuguese, and in English. You can see that from CLAYSS Digital. And you can also subscribe and have access to the latest news about our content. I would like to thank initially all the institutions, all the organizations that are here today, public officials and partners that are here with us today. We know that these are not easy times. It's not the same as in previous years where we held these meetings face to face. Now we're all connected to screens and Zoom all the time, and it's difficult always to adjust the schedules to virtuality. So we deeply appreciate your presence and the effort for being here today with us in this space. I'm sure that this is going to be very helpful for your activities. I would like to use this opportunity before making a short presentation of the program to pass the floor to Enrique Ochoa, the Executive Director of CLAYSS, so that he can share some opening remarks. Thank you, Pablo. I was just, around and I decided to visit to send you a big hug, all those that are participating, but very especially all the deans and teachers that work on service learning in the arts, our huge team of people that accompany those projects, people from CLAYSS, from different parts in Argentina, Brazil, Peru, Colombia, that work so hard. And in these virtual times, it's even more difficult and more complex. And they have continued working hard. So this is for you. And also thank you, Pablo, as the coordinator of the program and all those that work with him. The program for the dissemination of service learning in the arts is one of the programs that meets all our goals to accompany educational institutions that want to do service learning, produce dissemination materials and training materials that you can download for free or participate in meetings like this to disseminate our proposal, conduct research. There has been a photo contest. I know Pablo is going to speak about all this, but the art program has escalated so much that we are really proud at CLAYSS that we've been able to develop this. So thank you to our allies from the community network, the CAN, and also those that have been with us, donors and partners. So thank you so much. A big hug to everybody, and I hope we have an excellent meeting. Excellent. Kike, thank you so much. Most of us here in the Zoom know what our program is about. But since this is the first time that the meeting is broadcast live over YouTube, allow me to make a brief introduction. When I have to take the floor, I'm always nervous. I try not to speak much, but then I speak for 50 minutes. I hope this is not the case, but I'm going to try to make my presentation truly brief. Our program started in 2017 and accompanies schools and institutions from all levels of education in Argentina. We started in Argentina actually, and then we moved to other countries that we're working with, Brazil, Colombia, and Peru this year. We offer training for teachers, directors, leaders of organizations, public officials related to education in arts, and students involved in service learning projects and arts. Since the very beginning in our program, one of the objectives was to build evidence and experience on how to promote service learning as part of education in arts in the formal educational system. From CLAYSS, we've been working closely with educational institutions that have developed and develop service learning in the art projects. And we've truly seen the social impact that they provide by improving their communities. So I'm going to share my screen with some slides. The truth is that, as you all know, we've had a very special year and a half for the reasons you are aware of. Many of the institutions that are now part of our support program started coordinating with CLAYSS virtually. We had a virtual meeting last year, and that was a way of responding to this impossibility of providing a support program the way we would like because of the context of the pandemic. And with several of these institutions, we resumed our dialogue in February, and gradually, and always, overcoming the obstacles around us, we started with our team working for the year. This year, we are working with 17 educational institutions, 10 in Argentina, 3 in Brazil, 2 in Colombia, and 2 in Peru. There are 11 members of CLAYSS that work with those institutions. They train, they accompany, and they assess the institutions. Enrique has made reference to this, but I would like to go further into the aspects of the team that is conducting the program. First, in this Zoom, we have Mateo Urquiza. He's my colleague, and we've been working together on this program, and we've been sharing this from CLAYSS offices. And then we have a large team of members of the institutions spread all over Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. I don't want to forget to mention anybody: Nelia Licoletti, Jorge Sosa, Adriana Rules, Silis Borges, Paula Maidana, Lilian Medina, Nelia Garracin. Omar Enrique is also with us today. He was a member of this team. He's going to be with us in the workshops in the second part of the team. Sofia Carvalho from Brazil, Juan Nieto from Colombia, Silvia Mindroy from Peru. They are the true drivers of this program, and they accompany, they advise, they train, they assess the institutions, always trying to find the best way for them to move forward with their projects and improve them. Without them, this program would just be an anecdote. So I thank you and I congratulate you again. The team trained so far this year 388 individuals, including 203 students and 175 teachers and directors. Most of the trainings were virtual, although there were 1 or 2 face-to-face meetings. And based on the forms that were completed by the teachers from the various institutions working with us, we can say that now we have 1,535 students and 179 teachers involved in the service learning projects that we are supporting. And these projects have an impact on 131,000 people. So this is truly, and this is an estimation, of course. All the institutions received funding to develop and improve their projects. As I said, they had their initial training virtually, apart from a distance training for teachers in each institution. In some cases, the schools were able to move forward with the planning and the field work. Other schools have adapted to the context and are working on that. And some delayed in the implementation of the project and are still analyzing the best way to start them. That's why I said that when I started with Mateo and the team we thought it was necessary to have some time for the institutions to reflect about their current situation, what it means to do service learning in the art and in the communities, and how to start uh, moving the projects forward despite the pandemic. We try to give them tools, strategies, ideas, and of course, lots of questions. And for that, we thought it was interesting to invite the CAN, a new international organization we are part of, whose purpose is to relate organizations that are specialists and artists, to listen to their interests and needs. We want you to know them, to meet them, to see what they can offer. We are very happy to contribute our little contribution for this network to be known and grow, so that they can add more actors that can change the world through art. So after Anis and Samar presentation, we are going to listen to Alejandra Cativiela. She is the coordinator of the Service Learning Promotion Program in Uruguay, but she has always been working with us from the very beginning, from the creation of our program of service learning in the arts. She wrote the book that you can find in our webpage. And Alejandra is going to contribute her vision about what it means to do service learning projects in the arts in 2021 in this context. And finally, to complete this theoretical part, we are going to listen to the institution Creche Antonia Joana Barci Ferrari from Paulínia, Brazil. It's a kindergarten that has been developing their projects at full power during this context. And here we're going to give them some space so that those that are following YouTube, if they want to ask a question to all the speakers, you can do that. And in the second part of today's meeting, we're going to split the participants so that we can have a group dynamic. And then we're going to get together again in the final half hour to share impressions and conclusions. Beyond this meeting, what can we expect from this support program? What are the next steps? Well, the schools will have their second virtual training or face-to-face in September, October. On the other hand, a few months ago, we started a research program that is going to be fully launched next month, quantitative and qualitative stages simultaneously. And I want to invite all the institutions and the institutions that are following us on YouTube to participate. Last year, we started with a contest that is transformational stories. Last one, it was for photographies of service learning projects of all kinds, not only arts. And it was truly very successful and very interesting. And this year, in the second edition, it's going to be a video context. The call closes on September 30th. There you can find all the necessary information, historiasquetransforman.clays.org. And we're going to start a virtual support to institutions in 2021, just as we did last year. I don't want to take more time, so I just wanted to share some figures from these years to round up what we've been discussing. Along these years, we supported 30 educational institutions from all levels in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. Almost 2,600 community actors were trained, including 1,413 students and over 1,000 teachers and directors. So far, these projects involve 4,678 students and 903 teachers, all working on service learning in the arts that are supported by CLAYSS. That is a final estimation of around 200,000 actors and community beneficiaries that are estimated. Again, I would like to thank the team in our program. Without them, this would not have been possible. Now, I would like to pass the floor to our friends from the Community Arts Network. I would like to introduce them both. I will stop sharing my screen. We have Samara Bandak. She's from Jordan. She has worked for 2 years in the social sector with displaced populations and marginalized populations in the Middle East, particularly in the area of education. She has also worked in a foundation in Vienna that supports community arts projects, and now she's working hard in the development of the Community Arts Network. And with her, we have Anis Barnat, who defines himself as a multicultural citizen from the world with experience and background in the private sector, public administration, and public-private institutions. He's an engaged social entrepreneur with a vital vision as a co-founder of the system in Greece. Anis believes in community arts projects as tools for social inclusion. He's worked in several institutions, particularly Skonas Hold, where he represented orchestras and choirs from all over the world, developing I'm sorry. I think we've lost the main moderator. So if you agree, I will take the floor and I will pass the floor to our friends from Ken, Samar, and Is. So if you would like to start.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. If Pablo hears, thank you, Pablo, and Enrique, thank you. So Anis, would you mind sharing your screen and the presentation? And maybe I will just indicate when it's next. So first of all, I have to express how happy we are, and I am, like on a personal level and also as a community arts network, to be with you here today. And we are very grateful to CLAYSS for giving us this opportunity to present the Community Arts Network to you and explore how can we support you and collaborate together. So Anis, next. So before I start, I have to mention that CLAYSS is a core partner for the Community Arts Network. And this relationship builds on the long-standing partnership with one of the founding foundations of this network, which is Porticus, where CLAYSS and Porticus collaborated for years on developing the topic of service learning, and particularly service learning in the arts. It exists because it is a fruit of this co-creation between Porticus and CLAYSS. So we are so proud to be here now. So the Community Arts Network is a new addition or new element that would like to highlight and make more beautiful this partnership, make your work visible, to connect you as practitioners in the field and institutions to others who are doing similar work in other regions in the world, because we really believe in the impact of the work you do, and we are here to support and amplify your work. So you can take us as a megaphone. Anis, next, please. So what is CAN? What is the story of CAN? So CAN is a global network concerned with arts for social impact. It is founded, or it is a joint venture between two foundations which founded it. One is Porticus, as we mentioned, and the other one is Hilti Foundation. So both foundations has been working in the field of arts for social impact for years, supporting projects of all over the world. And this network really builds on these years and years of this work that they did in the field. So how the story started. So both foundations were concerned about how this sector, arts for social impact, can be strengthened and can be more visible. And there was like this, whether we need a network at all. Do we need a network for arts or we don't need it? And if yes, why do we need it? So in order to answer this question, Anis, next please. Porticus Foundation has commissioned a research body to do a global mapping, where this research has identified more than 2,000 organizations globally working in the arts for social impact. And the research have also interviewed hundreds of them. One of them was CLAYSS, trying to understand what are the needs, what are the gaps of the sector. And one specific question was, what do you need as an organization or as an artist practitioner to do your work best? Of course, number one need was funding. This is no doubt. But it's interesting to know that immediately after this, the needs that were identified was collaboration, networking, because participants expressed that the field is fragmented and they need to be connected to each other to share learnings and knowledge and really share experiences. Anis, next, please. So this mapping allowed us to identify the gaps and the potential levers of change. We really understood that connections, synergies, visibility seem to be key missing ingredients, of course, besides the funding. Next, please. So this paper revealed that community arts is a global community of ideas, but not a real community of network. And putting next, Anis, putting these results into our global context, especially in these times, as also Pablo mentioned in his introduction, we are really living in difficult and hard times. We really need new paradigms. We need to learn from each other, to work together, and to have this mentality that we have a shared destiny. Both Anis and myself, just to give you, although we work in Cannes and it's a global institution, I will refer to the Community Arts Network as CAN for the translator, so to make it easier. So although we work in a global institution, we come from grassroots community arts background. So we are both linked, aside from CAN, we are both linked to community projects, Anis in Athens and me in Jordan. And we all witnessed, like we just want to share with you that we know that we all witnessed how difficult was it to implement activities for all of us. And we almost lost motivation, but at the same time, it was so evident for us two things. First, the importance of the work that we all do, and we all, I'm sure, experienced that it was a source of hope for the community in these difficult times. And the second thing that we understood is we cannot work anymore in silos. We need the community spirit. We need interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary tools to respond to the complex challenges we have. So next, please, Anis. So that's why CAN was, let's say, developed. So to respond to these gaps. So to be honest, the formal official launching of this network started in April. But as I mentioned before, we really relied on the years of work of the founding foundations. And CAN has two main, let's say, pillars or verticals. One is to really provide services to the sector. So we call it enablement of the sector. So it is empowering, connecting, providing tools and resources, and also try to do this, what we call unlikely alliances, like to do an alliance or connection that is not predicted. So not artists by themselves or educations by themselves, but what if we connect businessmen to artists? What if we do this unlikely alliances? This is one, providing services to the sector. Number two is really advocacy. So we want to amplify and unify the voices for arts for social change and what you do in the field. I will now give the floor to my colleague Anis to explain what are the different verticals that help us and you to reimagine our world and what CAN is concretely doing. So Anis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Samar. It's very nice to meet you all. I hope that we can do that in presence in a very, very short time. Basically, when we started to discuss with artists, art institutions, the policymakers, the foundations, the scientists, the youth, but also the teachers. So all this ecosystem, we realized that arts had many representations. That is clear. It can be music, it can be dance, it can be theater, it can be visual arts, it can be the circles. I mean, many, many forms. And arts can also be used for a purpose, with a mission to bring people together, speak differently of an issue, and in the end, bring a new perspective on a subject that is usually treated in a more cold way. Art for the sake of the art is great, but we felt in all our discussions that art has also a responsibility and a role in our society. You can see here the different themes from what we learned, and we organized this in 6 clusters: art for business, art for democracy, art for climate, art for education, art for hope, and art for well-being. But what does it mean to have art for education, for example? It is both more arts in the classroom, but also more artful approaches in the delivery of the class. You don't need to be an artist to be an artist in the classroom. So inspiration should be available for everyone. This means that arts should play a role in having a more efficient or a more inspiring education system. What we also realized is that everyone working in this art for education seems to be very alone and not supported, and at least not seeing a big mountain that we have to surpass, which is not the best feeling when you are an educator, an artist, or a director of a school. By creating this coalition in arts for education, in which CLAYSS is really a core partner, we create a community of like-minded people and organizations like you are, that can share resources and solutions to problems you currently have. Last thing we realized is that we can use arts for one sector, or it can be for several sectors or intersectors. It's very useful for educators to know about climate change, for example, so that the next generation of children know about the environment challenges. And arts can be a tool to develop a consciousness on recycling, biodiversity, or pollution, or you name it, which you all agree are also things that could be taught in the schools. And I will give you concrete examples in a couple of slides. We wanted to give you a short, brief overview of what we do and how can be a support in your day-to-day lives. Starting with Art for Climate, we took the excuse of a big gathering, a big platform, TED Countdown. It's a platform that brings awareness on climate change with action-oriented and gathers thousands of millions of followers a year to bring the arts not as a decoration, but as a new imagination of what the world could look like if we change as communities. We believe, and I don't have to convince you, that artists can change the current negative narratives and make people think. We work with such artists, but also business people, policymakers, researchers, and we launched the Arts for Climate initiative. We held innovation labs in which we got to think of how we can make an impact and where. Basically, local initiatives are the best, but having a global platform that supports and helps them and every one of us and make us change is greater. This was most of last winter 2021 until our official launch of the website in April 2021. This summer, we have developed the Art for Climate initiative with upcoming projects, artwork in public spaces, artistic engagements, presence in international gatherings such as the upcoming TED Countdown, but also the COP26, the United Nations Climate Change Conference that will happen this fall 2021. We have also started to think of how we can develop the Arts for Education, which we want to launch in the upcoming months, and for which we would love to reflect with you, practitioners, on what does make sense and what are the questions and bottlenecks. In the meantime, while the focus is clearly on climate and education for the moment, we're not forgetting the other verticals, the democracy, the business, the hope, and the well-being. It's true that it's not with the same emphasis. And now some concrete examples of Art for Climate and what we do in this field. I'm not going to say something on all of these lines, don't worry. I'm going to take only 2 examples. There are a lot of things in here, but they're all relevant for you in these COVID, post-COVID times. And as teachers, I think that it can really be helpful. The first one is called Earth Speaker. We'll send you the link. It's a digital app created by an artist, Olafur Eliasson, on youth participation and civic engagement. What do the young people have to say to the adults? This app is a work of art that provides a space for the children to really tell us adults what they think of the state of the planet and what messages adults should know from them. It's about giving the planet a voice through the ones who are going to inherit it. The app is free, translated in many languages, so you can have it in Spanish or in Portuguese, in English also. And this is something that you can integrate in your practice in your classroom, if you wish. The second example, the ITAC Impact Climate. It's 5 artists selected around the world that have been engaged and commissioned to build specific projects around art for climate, with the ambition to create a curriculum that will be made available to all the teachers around the world, and that we will be more than happy to share also with you. And now, this was for Art for Climate. I'm going to pass the baton again to Samar so that she can tell you more about the Art for Education.
Thank you, Anis. So, I mean, as what also Anis mentioned, the Arts of Education is our next goal to really develop. And we are happy to have this occasion to invite CLAYSS, to invite all of you to help us develop this. Just a little bit of the ideas. We want to consider art role in both in education and for education. In education, as we all know, art, and I would say globally, is devalued in the learning process. And also it is squeezed out of the curriculum, usually at the expense of other subjects, math and science and English, languages, etc. So this is something we would look at. What are the bottlenecks that prevent arts to be back into the education system? And then the other thing, how art can contribute to changing the whole education system, as you do with the service learning as well, because as service learning is crucial for the learning and educational system and brings in social emotional learning for children and contribute to whole child development, what is also the role of art in this as well? We have some members who are currently working on this, and on the top of them is you, or it's CLAYSS. And we will soon start a more in-depth conversation to try to identify the crucial questions and the direction towards the answers. We also have a group of members who try to get back the art class in the curriculum and work with ministries of education as well. So we have, for example, Mir Muziek in the class. They try to do this in the Netherlands. We have Madrasati. They are also a local organization working with the ministry in Jordan. We have one also in India called Islam Out Loud. And we are happy to share with you all the links, all the resources whenever you want. And also we have others who have community-based art education projects that contribute to empowering youth and the development of children, especially those in adversity or who live in difficult experiences, and others who develop tools that help in the learning process. So we have, for example, Scenario is an organization that works in Lebanon, and they were really able to develop very good online tools that enable parents to continue the online, let's say, the online teaching and learning process in the lockdown time. And it's filled with artistic approaches. We are happy to share all of this with you as well when needed, and we have much more on our website. But as I said, this is a work in progress, and it's an invitation for everyone. I have also to add in the end that we intend to tackle this topic on a wider level as well for all long life learners, not necessarily only children. Anis, next. So now, practically speaking, what is in it for you for CAN? How can CAN support you? So we have identified a couple of things. One is visibility. So we have a website. We will share with you the links in the last slide. Everything will be shared also later in emails. So we have a website and social media channels. And we are happy, because we believe in the work you do, to make your work visible. You have findings, you have events, you have impact report, you have a successful project, you want to make it visible and share learnings with others. We're happy to have our platforms in your service. Second, we also can help you in network and connections to find like-minded people and organizations globally and nationally and regionally, but also in your field and not in your field. If you are thinking about other topics and other themes, we are also happy to do these connections and the network with grassroots and also global actors. We do this actually digitally. So we have a website. And in the website, there are multiple features. One of the features that we invite you also to use, we call it the matchmaker. So for example, you need a teacher that works in India and has an art project, for example, in climate. So you can check what you want, and then you will have the list of people working in the field you asked for, in the location, in the topic, on the profile of the organization you asked for. So we really invite you to use this matchmaker and connect to others. So once you have the list of people, there are the contact details where you can connect to them directly. This is one thing. The other thing, we are happy to do this personally. We are a small global team, but we are also willing to help you identify the right persons for your projects as well. And sometimes also bring you to present your projects in conferences, in other platforms as well. The other part is the knowledge hub that we have. So in the website, you can find many credible tools and references, information that help you in your project. Unfortunately, most of the things are in English. Having said that, it's an invitation now for everyone to share with us credible tools and references in Spanish, so that also the website is enriched as well. You can also find stories, success stories, and videos, and many things. So if you have a project you will like to tell us about, we can help you spread the word, finding collaborations and partnerships. Next, Anis. So you are all invited to join the network and register as a CAN member. It is actually for free. And I really suggest that you have a rich profile while registering, so people can find you, and also you can find others too. The more people we have in this network, the richer the network is. I always say, we as a community arts network, we gain nothing if the number is higher or lower. It's really a service for the sector. The more we are, the stronger we are. So when you are a member, you enrich the sector and the network, because the community arts network is you. And I want to really end with the contact details that you see and in the website and the newsletter. And if you have any question about anything we mentioned, if you have any clarification and we cannot answer it in the chat box afterwards, we're happy to receive all your emails and respond to them. And actually, last thing I want to say, we are also happy to be here because our network needs the Latin American presence. So please register and let's enrich this network. Thank you so much. Thanks. Anis, for you.
Muchas gracias, Samar. Muchas gracias, Anis.
Thank you, Samar. Thank you, Anis. I thank you so much for your participation and for your contribution. And now I would like to introduce my colleague, Alejandra Cadiviela. I've already mentioned her before, so I'm not going to repeat that. So I'll pass the floor to Alejandra and her beautiful presentation. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Pablo for having invited me to this space. It's truly a pleasure to be again in this meetings on service learning in the arts. And it was truly a pleasure to have listened to Samar and Is and to find so many points of contact between what they presented and what I'm going to try and describe in this short period of time. That, as Pablo mentioned, perhaps it can be brief or perhaps we speak too much, but I think those of us in the field of arts, we express ourselves through non-verbal languages. And when we use the language, perhaps we speak too much. So I'm going to try and speak. And so bear with me and bear also with my inability of being brief. I'm going to try and make an effort. So as a starting point, I would like to emphasize where we are. These are very difficult times. In general, we, go back and forth between virtuality and face-to-face meetings as a result of the pandemic. We go out to the territories and we have to go back in again. We start going to the schools for class and then we go back to the virtual lessons. And that has an impact in each educational practice. And that makes us permanently think and rethink our practices. And in the field of arts, and here I would like to mention some things that Samar mentioned before, historically in the field of education in arts has been quite lowly valued in education, although there has been a lot of regulations in the teaching of art and the lessons of art have been an important part in the system. In our country, we still see that education in arts is not that valued. And in fact, I think that in these critical times as the pandemic, that idea of thinking, what is education in art for? What's the use of education in art? What's the value? And is it necessary to have education in art? Those questions keep coming back. And I think that a very special aspect is that link established between service learning and the art disciplines and the field of education in art. When we see service learning project in the arts, we find the real value of art education for forming citizenship, for forming engaged subjects, for developing all those things that we think are essential in the area of art, creativity, sensitivity, expression. But besides that, it would be, crazy to think we are the only ones that carry out the development of creativity. Creativity is also developed in other areas of knowledge, not only art. But in the area of art, the essential thing is the formation of a subject that interprets their surroundings. And he's also mentioned as something related to the link with social issues, being able to reflect what is part of what society is suffering as problems. And art has to assume responsibility for that in the area of education. I'm going to share some ideas with all of you and also with those that are following on YouTube that has to do with the perspective of art and the relationship with service learning. And essentially, what I would like to do is to pose some questions that help us think basically on how to improve our art lessons, how to improve art knowledge with the real value it has for the construction of citizenship, for forming subjects, particularly in the area of education, primary and secondary education, and that also all those subjects that are interested in education in art, knowing that the states have the obligation to receive the students and to provide them with education. So to start thinking, what I propose is to review the curricula in service learning that are the matrix of what happens in education when we create a project of service learning in the arts. So we say that a service learning project provides a service intended to deal with real needs with a community, not just for a community. It's actively led by students from the planning to the assessment, and it's also articulated with the learning contents. So if these are the three features of service learning, and if we are in the field of education in arts, well, we should start going deeper into these features. So I invite you to ask ourselves, what does it imply to think of service learning in relation with the arts? And when we think of the active leadership of students, how are they actively involved in the service learning experiences in the arts? How are they engaged, and how we, the teachers, engage them? And as to the area of knowledge, the curricula, it is very important, it's essential that we ask ourselves, on what concept of arts and education in arts do we position the proposals of service learning? I go back to the idea that I said that it's devalued. Sometimes that loss of value is due to the fact that we respond to paradigms that are not what they should be for education in arts. So I invite you, I'm going to invert the order, and I'm going to start making some considerations that have to do with the art knowledge, the content in the area of art in the proposals of service learning. I always like to contrast or to see this tension that is usually visualized behind school experiences related to art that very often respond to traditional paradigms that perhaps made sense in the past and in different places. At least in this side of the world, in the Americas, very often there's an approach to the Roman and the classic approach, the European approach, ignoring our own artistic practices. And the school practice is led to the manipulation of materials and tools and technical skills without finding the true sense of the founding matrix of that educational situation that the students go through. So school experiences go along one path, and the current art experiences, the art experiences of our time, go through a different path, where the diversity of materials and tools is very important. The producers modify their link with the work, and that link and the approach of the art to the so-called audiences is also very different. So if the experiences in the area of arts currently transform, are modified, are altered as to the materials, the ways of producing, the connections with the public, the dissemination of art production, what happens? Sometimes those transformations are not included in the schools, in the classrooms, when sometimes in the curricula, they are included. But very often, those things do not have an impact in the classroom. So to make a very quick overview of these three substantial aspects of the field of art in the contemporary world, we can say about the materials that art now leaves the work as an object, and it's more prone to the ephemeral art events that happen at a certain time in a certain place that are there to build a discourse on the world, and after that event they vanish, they disappear, and the only thing that is left is the photographic or the video record of that situation. But it's no longer the event, it's a new work actually. So the work as a single object, as a stable object, is no longer there. The materials, the tools are diversified, as well as the support and the techniques compared to the traditional elements of art. There we have some pictures that show that event, flash mob in the Vienna station, where musicians appear playing Carmina Burana, and the musicians start appearing from among the audience, or the experience of Garcia Uriburu painting the waters in the River Plate in Argentina to speak about pollution and reporting pollution. And as to materials, we have these aspects, and we also have other aspects that are changing, that are related to this crossing between art, technology, science. Technology is a means to produce. Technological devices contribute now to the production of works, but not only to the production, but also to making the work circulate, to reach and circulate. And we can find productions from Tanzania in Argentina without me having to go to the museum, go to Tanzania and see there the production. The barriers start breaking down. The spaces start to be shared as a result of working with technology. And I repeat, in this dual path of being a device that collaborates with the production, but also a means to disseminate the production. And in that sense, we also see that the limits between the languages are blurred. We speak of traditional disciplines like music, visual arts, drama, dance, but those four traditional disciplines at school, actually, now they are blended, and they generate this idea of a comprehensive show, integrating all the practices that is actually strongly focused on what I want to say rather than in how I say it or what I say it with. And that leads me to the possibility of interacting between music, visual arts, design, and dance. Also mediated by technology. On the other hand, we were saying that there are transformations that have to do with the forms of producing in the current time. And if we speak of a particular feature of this art production, the characteristic of the present is the strong emphasis on collective practices, the subjects producing jointly. It doesn't mean that individual artistic practices are disappearing, and it doesn't mean that the typical canvas is going to disappear at the museum. But what we have to rethink is that art production is not only that we've been inheriting, but it's also what we have today in our immediate context. And therefore, although there are still individual practices, the collective practices are increased. They are more interactive, more experiential, and normally they are mounted on projects or programs. Those projects or programs, as we spoke today of things that have to do with global warming or social issues, environmental issues, well, as a result, the artist cannot work on his or her own, but they require a multidisciplinary approach. And so they create these collective groups that do art from different disciplines, from other areas of knowledge that are not only art. And it's necessary to work with environmentalists, sociologists, with historians, philosophers, linguists, and so on and so forth, with many other fields where the artistic action has to be strongly founded and supported by validated knowledge. That sometimes artists, we don't have those knowledge that consolidated. We are specialists in a certain field, the field of art, but in order to build a story about the world, we also need other areas of knowledge. So the area and multidisciplinary approach is essential within the artistic knowledge. On the other hand, finally, in this very quick overview that I'm trying to share about the transformation in this field, has to do with the connections between the public and the art. And actually, the art, as I mentioned in the other experiences, art starts invading the space of the subjects. It starts appearing before the subjects, before us, that we are living in our daily life. I don't go to art by going to the museum. Perhaps I never go to a museum, but it doesn't mean that today I'm not attending artistic experiences. So there are new spaces for exhibit that are essential in the current times, both physical and virtual. They break in the public space, in the city, in nature. They break into our own context. And it describes the problems of the world by breaking into those spaces, but also from virtuality and from social media. I always say when I think of my teaching practice in high school, how my students have a very rich, a huge artistic development through the social media, from the capture of a selfie to any other thing that they are taking pictures of, and they exhibit that to the world through the social media. So, and they are building sense, and they are positioning themselves, and they are saying, they are speaking from those images. So that change in terms of the space for exhibition also gives us the possibility of having access to the social media. And in terms of this change in the connections with the public, one of the essential aspects of art at present is to challenge the public and to remove them from this passive role of observer or just enjoying the art situation. And they become a co-creator, and they become part of the production. There you can see some kids with their hands touching a light. Actually, this is a work from a group, Biofus is the name. It's actually a sound and visual device. You see the interaction of the hands there, but it's like an elastic mesh, a homogeneous mesh. And as you start touching there, it doesn't have any support, so it's so elastic. So the mesh moves up and down, and it generates sounds and shapes and colors. And as the hands move and come in and out by pressing more or less, we make music and visual images. So if the audience, the public, is not there, the work does not exist. It is generated through the participation of the public. So from that extreme situation, there are other possibilities. But essentially, we have this issue of involving the subjects in the production.
A ver, vamos a adentrarnos aquí en cuestiones que tienen que ver con esos dos otros rasgos programáticos. Perdón. Decía que vamos a adentrarnos ahora.
I was saying that we need to focus on things that have to do with what we consider service learning in connection to arts. Here we find that service learning We privilege the idea of solidarity in a horizontal model. There is no subject who has and some others who don't, some that give and some others that don't. We start off from a recognition of rights, sharing, pro-social links, and links of reciprocity, co-protagonism that should be there with the design and execution of projects. From art, it is important to consider that the community we're going to take action on have considered, had transversed experiences with art, producers and being the audience. And each one of them, we consider these identities. We have built an identity. So it is necessary in terms of solidarity not to sweep away with all this experience, but rather to capitalize on it, to harness on it. So art intends to to produce narratives on the world, moving away from irrefutable truths and commonplaces. It breaks down with stereotypes. It is a link with community where we find all the senses and a proposal with the artistic education. So community is a place of participation. It is a place where we learn. But what are the issues that we envision that we will be learning in connection to art? On this axis, on this line of art, has to do with artistic interpretation, creativity, expression, sensitivity, but essentially so in the field of art and education, the core is the aesthetic artistic interpretation, building identities, respecting cultural diversity, valuing the manifestations, integrating the cultural heritage from the local to the regional to the national. With a Latin American view, this is what I regard from the Argentinian view, which is the place where I'm talking from, where I am a teacher. But, well, of course, we reverse such a scheme that we have had permanently from Latin America, when we were always looking outside towards Europe, disregarding roots and cultural identity. Service learning is one of the possibilities, the biggest ones, that we can have to focus on that which is of our own. When we walk away from, the flutes or the steps, the dancing steps that we learned from choreography, and we find art that is local in our place, in our surrounding, then we find something different. And finally, we will now move on to a fundamental point, the involvement of students in the project. We talk about student protagonism. What are the aspects that we should be privileging in art? We say so from the initial consideration, proposals down to evaluation. But what does this mean in the field of art? I mean, that student protagonism. I would like to focus on this. This is the right that all subjects have when they get trained as artists, and the educational system, the school and the state has an opportunity to provide artistic education to all subjects rather to a few. Art is for all, art is knowledge, they can all be transversed by art, they can all learn it. And if that is not the case, then we have to revisit how we teach it so everyone learns it. Therefore, all subjects are entitled to participating in all instances involved in the artistic production. And how, in what way? Well, on our end, we need to have an appreciation and a recognition of art and youth culture. We need to learn about that. We need to attribute the fact that they should undertake different roles so that they get involved in collective scientific practices, so that they can develop actions in which they can be related to production and in coordination practices. And in order to conclude, and I guess, Pablo, I don't have any more minutes left assigned to me, but I would like to get a few more in order for me to conclude this. Let me revisit a few things that can be found in the book that is on CLAYSS webpage, Service Learning and Art. experiences in art in the part that the program has on the web. There's a lot of information on that. But I believe that it is essential that all these things that we are considering, then we should see it in those lines that have to do with the different solidarity activities or service learning activities through which we can take advantage of service learning. And we have three big groups of activities that from artistic education we can carry forward in service learning. On the one hand is to exchange and to transfer knowledges, workshops, collective artistic activities, basic disciplines that are traditionally recognized as new disciplines, or specificities within the fields, a recurrent practice. But I invite you to rethink about it based on what we were talking about before. It's to bring forward to the other, or is it to build together with others? A very interesting experience that I am sure you can go deeper into when you find information on CLAYSS webpage on the service learning program in art, the one that is carried out by UNA, the National Art University from the city of Buenos Aires. They carry out a program for appreciation and experimentation with artistic languages for the elderly. I have another experience that is very interesting, and we have become acquainted with it because they have been part of the photography contest, the Cruzeiro School. They have carried out social management roles together with economic and the environment. Art doesn't go alone. It goes hand in hand with other problems. They work in revaluing, in recapitalizing places, a square here in Rio de Janeiro where art is integrated. On the other hand, we have another art area that has to do with the delivery and production of goods and services and dissemination campaigns. This is related to traditional campaigns of making objects artistic or for real life use. It is important to find out how this artistic production finds its place in the public space and how it makes use of technology devices in order to produce, in order to materialize things. An interesting experience, and I invite you to visit or recognize, is Audiovisual Language 3, that's the chair where they develop short films, audiovisual short films. They have community organizations, schools that are recognized by their social or solidarity work. And the last line is the contribution to local development processes. This is related to interdisciplinary projects, artistic events, artistic interventions, but they basically are focused on local significant problems, and they have a strong appeal on the active involvement of community. Please remember what we were talking about, community and the audience. It's not just opening up a concert, it's bringing the musicians from the local place, from the community to that place and building together with them. We have a strong emphasis on having a recovery and a new value to local traditions and the cultural heritage, material and immaterial goods, intangible heritage. Service learning is absolutely appropriated pedagogy, so that from art we can vindicate community traits of local communities, some things that are being lost, and reinvigorate them and giving them new value. And the experience you can go deeper into, and those participating in the seminar tomorrow will have a chance to be exposed to this in the simultaneous sessions or workshops and panels. They will find in the area dedicated to art a presentation by a Jujuy school, even though we have called it the workshop for construction and repair of local instruments, because students repair the sikus, a local instrument. There's a strong emphasis on recovering ancestral musical practices retrieved from community. This has to do with the knowledge of music held by the community, by the local community. So far was my formal presentation. And I would like to conclude by going back and mentioning a few comments. These open questions that remain, which are key, we need to revisit them from the field of arts. What is service learning in connection to arts? How are students actively involved in service learning experiences when it comes to art? And on what conception of artistic education or arts do we position educational proposals in connection to this? These are essential lines of thoughts we have to keep revisiting, so that, as a colleague said before, we need to take a leap forward of that lack of value that artistic education tends to have in the curricula. That is actually fundamental for the full exercise of rights of citizens to go through the disciplines of art. Thank you so much for your attention. And of course, we have lots of areas to keep working in more detail in the future. Thank you so much, Ale, for your presentation. These are one of the institutions that we are working on in Brazil. This is Jonavasi Ferrari, and I give the floor to Tanya and Caroline, who are the ones that are carrying forward the project. Welcome, ladies. Good morning. I would like to thank CLAYSS for the opportunity that they've given me. And I would like to thank Isabella and Sofia from the Futuro movement. They have provided support during the execution, during the project execution. I would like to say that this project was a very important one for the transformation of the reality of a creche. We managed to see changes in the institution and in the city as well. So I would like for her to talk about that. Good morning. I would like to make an introduction of Creche Antonia Joana Barsi, and I would like to talk about Gibbon de Lagoa, that everything should be working fine in the lagoon. You can play the video. This video will show you how our space, this kindergarten, works. It is next to a square. Well, it's not actually a square. It looks like a forest. And there's a lagoon that is a very nice space. The institution is on the other side, overlooking the lagoon, and there's a lot of contact with nature. This is at John Lorana in Paulina in the state of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And the purpose of the project was to join up efforts with the community in order to boost this area and to find the identity of this place based on lessons learned. Children engaged in lots of artistic interactions in order to transform this place and render it even more beautiful. It is beautiful in and of itself because of the natural context. I should say that I cannot be very objective when talking about this place because I'm quite fond of it. But I do think it needed some improvement, and that's what it got. Let me now move on to another slide. Let's talk about motivation. The initial motivation of this project started off from the community. Viviani is here. She's the representative of the movement, that of revitalizing this lagoon. She lives there. She lives opposite from the square on the lagoon as well. And she works on the institution. And she had this project for quite some time. And even though the space is a nice one and it was used for another purpose, it was put to the bad use. There were lots of burglars, they sold drugs. Our kindergarten suffered from lots of vandalic acts. So we needed to improve this space so that people, the community could use this space in a positive manner. It was such a nice space, but it was so depreciated. It was so much devalued. And so we generated a project. Our leader started, Viviane Ribeiro started this, and she tried to promote around the schools actions that would promote the new value to this lagoon, which is public heritage, and also to have a good impact on the environment. In this way, students and their families could get involved in those cultural artistic actions that could be undertaken, and also in revitalizing the space in order to give it a new life. So we started with the diagnosis stage. We sent over a few research efforts. We carried out some research through the social network and through the school in and of itself. And we sent it over to the community to find out what the needs were so that they would find what, and they would be seen in un ratito. This is what they wanted to find out, toys. They wanted to paint walls so that kids would see this, and people would look for spaces in order for the name to be out there, but the name was not out there. So they wanted to paint a picnic table, necessary stuff for picnics, so that this could be painted on the school. So based on this, we looked for possible solutions in connection to the learnings that were planned in the curricula, considering the ages of children. They were quite small. So we wanted to see what was possible as part of the needs that were found or that were shared by community. And what came along was the planning stage. So what happened with planning? Due to the pandemic, children were at home, they didn't go to school. So it was kind of difficult to implement. Only in May did they come back. And in May, we found a way to work better on this. We first carried out interactive visits with children so that they would get familiar with the lagoon. We carried out a few walks and tours. They were able to see nice places that they were unfamiliar with. They also saw negative things. People were dumping dust or garbage and destroying things. So based on these visits within the school, we carried forward a few activities with them in accordance to the lessons that they had learned. We also requested a place to dispose of waste. We started talking about recycling and care for the environment. And we also carried out a vote to find out what name we would give to the project. We sent over through social media and on the WhatsApp group that we have with parents, proposals. People got back to us with their proposals, with names. And following that, we submitted this to a vote. And this name was chosen, Dubois Lagoa, that everything should be working fine on the lagoon. And then we had this flyer that was circulated in the community with all the activities that are involved in the project. This space, I mean, in connection to this institution, there are other activities. There's a tricycle ride for weekends. There are NGOs that engage in soccer activities with children. There's also gym or workout activities. We are revitalizing the area through exhibitions and fairs. Through this newsletter, this bulletin that we share, community learned a little bit about activities. And finally, of course, the material and the necessary labor that was necessary to be incorporated on the project. I will now give the floor to the teacher, Eloína, to talk about the practical part of the project. Thank you.
Então, vou dar continuidade, né? Algumas coisas a Carol já
So I'm going to continue, and I'm going to mention some things that Caro already mentioned, but I'm going to describe how was the contact with the community. Initially, because of the pandemic, we had online meetings to explain the project. And then when we started going back to classes at school, but only with 30% of the students and following all the protocols, what we did was to organize some visits with students, and we also tried to encourage families to come with their kids to the place, to visit the place, and to get to know it. They also paid attention to the animals and the plants and the negative impacts on in the place, to be aware of what was happening. There we can see how they are improving the street, how the community is participating, painting here. And also the kids contributed in the different activities. They painted their hands on the walls. Also, they painted the name of the school on the floor. Here they are embellishing the garden in our school. Their hands painted on this wall to make the place more beautiful. So with this very high participation of the families, there was also contacts through the social media with the bulletins that were shared there. And also the community was invited to see what was happening in the area, as well as the local authorities. So this was a solidarity action that was conducted among everybody. So if we move on to the next slide. Among the learnings achieved, well, we have several things to mention. There you can see the kids exploring the space, looking for materials from nature to then take that to school. Then they reproduce those materials with paintings, with drawings. Here, they're also working with recycled materials, and they use that wall to do their paintings. And as you can see, we made those paintings with several techniques. We used boxes, egg boxes. We painted some tires that were then left in our school, always preserving the environment, also teaching them about citizenship and social action, and always putting the kids at the core. They participated in the design. They made the drawings that represented our places, and also the exchange of those drawings. At some point, they selected a drawing that initially made no sense for us, and we thought it presented some risks. But when we asked her why she had chosen the drawing, she explained exactly what she was seeing. That was that she saw the lake with this lizard, and for us it was good because we thought that's good. She truly understood the project. So all the learnings are in accordance with the area of expertise that is at the school. So it's very important for us to express themselves and to recognize themselves in one another. About the results of these learnings, and considering that the teachers at the institution perhaps do not have a specific training in art and the will, but they do have the will to transform the space, this was a challenge for all of us, because we didn't have all the knowledge, but we were truly willing to transform the area and see what we could do with such young kids in this project. So I think this went even beyond our expectations, speaking of the results. But it was possible because we had the collaboration of teachers, employees in general terms. That's why it was so successful. And the community was also involved. So this went beyond even the walls of the community, considering that in the past, the institution perhaps had a negative image, and we were gradually recognized as a nice place, a pleasant area, rescuing these positive aspects and recognizing this as a space for entertainment and a nice place to visit, both the school and the lake also. So it was very good to have this training with CLAYSS that truly marked a difference. And it has to do with art, because it made a big difference in before we had an ugly aspect. It was sad. Now it's much nicer and joyful. There we see the result of the works that were conducted. The wall already has the name of the school. All the area is prettier. This is the before and after the painting. This was the sidewalk. It was all, it was in a very bad condition, but then it was repaired. You see the tires there in different colors with the marks of the kids, with the different shapes and colors and objects. We see that this is an alligator that was made with some tree trunks that were in the place. They were painted by the kids, and this is it's a game for them to play. It's a table also made with bottle cans, and the lids of the bottles. They selected the colors, the shapes, and they helped build that table I showed you before. So their participation was very important throughout, and we have the full support of our Secretary of Education. This work, this art work, has to do with the pillars of sustainable education that says that if you see, you imitate. If you justify, you don't do. If you learn, you do. If you learn, you produce. If you produce, you innovate. If you innovate, you sustain. And if you sustain, you're happy. So we truly feel happy about the project. And we feel happy for having included every kid. We are happy with the development of the activities that help for that helps for service learning.
Aí, o nosso espaço. O jacaré existe.
There you can see our space. The alligator is for real, it exists.
Quem diria que aquela figura verde de olhos grandes e casca dura...
Who would say that that green and hard shape could be so admired? What are you going to do in the lake? We are going to look for the alligator.
O projeto de Boa na Lagoa nasceu...
The Boa na Lagoa project in the city of Paulínia in São Paulo. The inhabitants realized that they lived close to precious things that should be preserved. I think that education is essential for the training of citizenship and individuals to be more aware and more critical, and they can transform society. So as soon as the school agreed, everybody became, and everything became more colorful. The first step was to get to know the community better. We wanted the territory to be better. Look, how nice.
E é claro que tudo que
Be
foi
careful, it's poisonous. Everything was afterwards reproduced. The reality was incorporated through drawings and paintings. Also, the ideas for protecting the environment were also transmitted to the students. Actually, they were the ones that taught us common sense. Oh, that's ugly. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And again, here, this is the alligator. In the recycling class, they couldn't be left out. The participation of the students, well, they are leaders in all the activities. They play a leading role. And it's important to assess everything that happens around them, both in the community and at school. I'm very happy. I'm really happy for having participated in this with the students, because we call the students to this project, and we want to make this better for them. So this is a project that will also have an impact on society. We're going to do our best for everybody to be aware of the environment, of the importance of citizenship. Many values are involved here, many experiences for kids, so they can learn without realizing they are learning this. They do this for fun. They like playing, and they learn a lot along the way. Here they are planting trees and plants. They built this wall with these Legos, and they voted for the best drawing. The service learning project in the arts is now a reality. Kids from 0 to 3 became the protagonists of a story of transformation. These are simple changes that make a difference, and they are made with the assistance of volunteers. After they realized and they started to see how great it was to help, they lots of employees and the relatives of the staff, they all participated to improve the environment and the park and the kindergarten. And it was just an idea, just the agreement and the alligator, all that was needed for this to happen.
Hermosa experiencia. Muchas gracias.
That was a beautiful experience. Thank you so much, Tania, Eloína. Thank you so much, Caroline, Isabella, and Sofia. Also, thank you for training and supporting them. I want to thank you for the presentation of this beautiful project. Actually, this was in a kindergarten during the pandemic today. So I think it's a very motivating experience, and it's very touching as well, that I'm sure it is showing us that we can still carry out service learning projects in this context. We are a little behind the schedule. We were thinking of having a short period for questions. I don't know if anybody here in the Zoom or on YouTube would like to ask a question to the speakers. Otherwise, we are going to close this first part of the meeting.
¿Tenemos alguna pregunta?
Do we have any question, Mateo? No, there are no questions in YouTube. I don't know if anybody here in the Zoom has any question for Alejandra. More than questions. Hi, good morning. I'm Cecilia Uriche, the director of School 4070 in San Rafael, Mendoza. More than a question, I want to congratulate you because it helps us a lot to what we are trying to do. These are great proposals because it's like this gives us new ideas. So it has been very helpful. So I just wanted to thank you. Thank you, Cecilia, so much. I don't know if there's any question. Otherwise, we will finish this first part. Okay, then. I would like to thank you all again, both those that are here in Zoom and all those that are following on the 3 YouTube channels. It is truly a pleasure and to hold this meeting in this context. Unfortunately, we don't have time to present all the experiences that are supporting this year. We just presented one, but actually the schools are working very hard with their projects. They're all excellent. We have teachers and directors that are truly engaged despite the context and in this context. And that is very important for us and very valuable. And it goes beyond what we can do at CLAYSS. It shows the work and the effort made by all schools, not only in Argentina, but also in Brazil, Colombia, Peru, and anywhere else in the world, what they do in order to keep teaching, all the valuable things they contribute. So we are closing this first part of the meeting and our YouTube transmission. I'd like to thank you all for following us on YouTube, and I invite you to join again at 3 p.m. You can check our YouTube channels of CLAYSS Digital to see the opening of our seminar and to start with all the activities in the international conference. So thank you for your presence, and we will stay here. We will keep working in the second part of this meeting. Thank you.